How would you respond to those who say Iyengar Yoga is rigid or harsh?
Well, any of these things, of course, is in the eye of the beholder. I mentioned earlier the little story about Mr. Iyengar giving me a swat on the side of the head. So I find people read spiritual literature, and they read a Zen story, and they read about the Zen student who goes to the Zen master, and the Zen master gives him a koan and asks him to contemplate this, and the student's getting nowhere, and he keeps mumbling all this thought process about what he's doing. And the Zen teacher takes off his saddle and swats him alongside the head, and the student wakes up and he's enlightened. And everybody goes, wow, isn't that really cool? That's a far-out spiritual story. Except that if they see a Zen teacher pick up a student and hit a student alongside the head with it, then they say, teacher abuse. You know? Is it or isn't it? So I'm not saying that I'm running around hitting my students. I don't do that. But there is an intensity and a power to the way that Mr. Iyengar teaches that sometimes his students adopt, particularly early on, since one tends to emulate one's teacher until one finds one's own voice. And that has, I think, given Iyengar Yoga the reputation of a particular harshness because Mr. Iyengar is intense. The sutras, by the way, say that practitioners can be mild, medium, or intense, and so teachers can be mild, medium, intense. He's an intense teacher, and it's too intense for some folks, and that can feel kind of harsh. He's not interested in making this pleasant and accessible to people. This is his experience of yoga, and he doesn't invite you. You go to him. So it's, you know, I didn't invite you here. This is how you're going to do it or not. Rigid. If you let people do what they want to do, they're happy and they're fine, but they don't really learn as well as being guided and directed. So if I guide somebody and direct them, am I being rigid? If I say, no, you have to do it this way. When I teach my beginners, the very first class I say to them, this is not an exercise class, this is a yoga class. And so I'm here to teach you yoga, which is about waking up, about understanding all the connections within yourself and then those connections with the rest of the world. Really all you have to do that is be present. It's about what Ram Dass used to say, being here now. And that's what we're going to work on. And the way we're going to work on that is we're going to play Simon Says kids game, you know. And so I'm Simon for the next 10 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever they're signed up for. And your job is to follow along. First, you'll learn the poses better if you follow along. And you'll avoid problems and perhaps injuries if you follow along, because I'm giving you guidance to avoid those things. But you'll learn to be present in the moment and pay attention, and that's really the yoga part. So if I'm saying to you, oh, your feet are supposed to be parallel, your feet aren't parallel, I'm not telling you you're a bad person. I'm not telling you there's anything wrong with you. It's just that we have this agreement where if you're not present and paying attention, I'm going to point this out to you to help you be present and to pay attention. And that's our contract. That's our agreement. That's what we're here to work on. So is that rigid? If I say, hey, your feet aren't parallel, make your feet parallel? Some people are going to say, yeah, who cares if my foot's at 5 degrees or 6 degrees? Why are you being so rigid? First off, it changes how your hips work and how your knees work and what happens in your spine. But furthermore, that's the agreement we've made. This is how we're going to do this. And if you're not doing this, then you're daydreaming. Because everybody can make their feet parallel. Almost everybody can make their feet parallel. So I'm just calling you back into the present moment by having you follow these particular techniques.